Hey, loved ones, how are you doing? It's Love Marlene 11411, and welcome to today's show. I thank you all so much for tuning in to today's podcast and show. Um, we're going to get started, and before we do, I'm going to play the welcome, the intro. So, welcome in. So, welcome to today's podcast and show. As you can see by the title today, I'm talking about using your children as leverage. And in relationships, we always find that there's always going to be some issue, but the problem always is when you have one person in the relationship that is a user, that is a manipulator. And I'm waiting for my co-host, Miss Shay Love. Um, Here she is. Let's welcome Shay to the show.
Hey, Marlene, welcome in, sis. Welcome in. Hello. Look, I'm used to just coming off of a panel myself, but hey, how are you today?
Doing awesome, doing awesome. Thank you so much for coming up. We're testing out this vertical live streaming here from StreamYard. I'm going to do this on my channel, and then at another time at Shay's convenience, we'll do it on hers so that we both can get some of this watch time, some of this you know, good conversation. So
That's right.
yes. So I was just saying, Shay, how it's crazy how some people will be using their children as leverage. I didn't start off, but I do want to say that, leverage means using something to your maximum advantage. And that's what I can't just say men, but it can go the other way that women can do it too. They can be using
Right.
their children as leverage and to their advantage because they're just selfish.
Yeah, at the core of it is definitely selfishness. Using kids as leverage means you're basically using your child as a tool of abuse or manipulation. That's pretty much what it is, simply put. And what happens is when a parent or a partner tries to, pretty much control, punish or get revenge on the other parent, they do that by involving the kids. Okay. They may demand that the other parent, do all the child care, or they'll try to make things one-sided. So yeah, it's definitely something that comes from a very selfish, very manipulative, very immature, place. And it's often done, I'm sorry, it's wrong. It shouldn't be done because we now involve the innocence of children who, back in our day, Marlene, when things were going on between our parents, we knew nothing about it. We were nowhere around. And so this kind of messes it up, for our children. So yeah, it's definitely coming from a place of selfishness. And it happens so much today. It's just a sad reality.
It is. It's a really sad reality. And what always gets me is the parent that is the immature one, the unreasonable one, always turns it around to make it seem like it's something wrong with the other parent that they can't.
Oh, yes. That's that good old manipulation, right? That's, oh my gosh. I thank God for deliverance from going through all of that, because that's exactly how that happens, and, unfortunately, they're comfortable doing that because they're used to it working. They're used to it, getting them the response that they want. That's why we need to become privy to these tactics and start to shut that down. We have to, in that moment, stand in the gap for not just for ourselves, but for our children, because it's innocence being abused at the time.
Yeah. And the whole thing about it is that as a parent, you have to realize that even if the person that you're with is not wrapped too tight, you have to be protective of your child's mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial well being.
That's right. We are not excused from those responsibilities just because one parent does not have it together. You are absolutely correct in that. We still have to hold it together. I know everybody has what works for them. Again, that's where my strength was gained from. I had to align myself the righteous way so that I could do what I needed to do. Because again, we need to protect our children at all costs. One of the most important reasons to make certain decisions and moves is because your child is watching. And as a parent who has unconditional love, I mean, oh my gosh, for my children, as every parent should, again, like you say, sometimes you have to protect them from another parent. And that's something that's hard to do because a lot of times you don't want to bring the issue to the forefront for whatever reason. But we have to think about our babies. And, we have to do what's best for them.
We do. We have to do what's best for them. And one of the things that I had to learn too is that don't take your issues with that said parent. Like if your relationship doesn't work out, don't punish your
Right.
children for whatever issues that you have with with your baby's father or your baby's mother. Don't take it out on, your kids. Don't let your kids
Right.
because of it. Like, okay, I don't get along with you, but that should not stop me from allowing you to see your child as long as you're operating on all cylinders. You still have to still think about your children. But I've seen women and men hold back the love, hold back their children from being around their parent because they want money or they're upset that they have moved on.
Right. And that's the wrong thing to do. Somebody has to be mature in the situation. Even when it's a situation where one of the parent that is, the manipulative one or the one who is trying to leverage the children, we have a duty. And that duty is to still raise our children to respect that parent. That's scriptural, and we cannot get away from that. One thing is for sure, children process things differently for quite some time until they get the proper understanding. A child is going to know when a parent is not what they proclaim to be. A child is going to know when a parent is full of it because children are paying attention, and at the proper time, they will act accordingly. But as the other parent, the healthy minded parent, we have a job to do because at the end of the day, a lot of times bad parents aren't so bad to the kids. You know why? People don't understand the term parenting. A parent who gives their child all, overflows them with gifts, that's not good parenting. You don't discipline your child, that's not good parenting. You discipline your child in areas where they may should not be disciplined. You get where I'm going? The Bible says even a wicked person could give good gifts to a child. In other words, even a wicked person can pretend to be good, to their child. So we have to make sure that although we may be faced with these different obstacles, we do have to still instill respect in our children for that not so good parent. If that makes sense, what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
Because parents, like I said, parents would try to use their children as a leverage to get information. They'll use a child just to try to trigger you. You have to be careful about what you say around kids. If you're not in the same home, be mindful of what you're doing in front of the child, because one thing a child is going to do is talk. And children, and a parent who with ill intent will even know that. I don't care what anybody says, and they'll just do whatever, knowing it's going to get back to the other parent. So to me, it's just a cowardice move to me, when you have to recruit our kids to do your bidding. Use them to tempt, convince, communicate, or threaten, manipulate anybody. That's just, it's so weak. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very weak-minded, very low vibrational, and
Very low.
we have to want to improve. And the whole thing about relationships is we have to make decisions that's for the benefit of our children. When we become parents, it's not about what we want anymore. That ends.
That's
It's
right.
now you have to think about your child first. That
That's
all of
right.
that immaturity stuff and what I want and what I like. No, now
That's
it's about
right.
for the benefit of my child, what is for their best well-being, what will help them financially, what will support their emotions, what will
Oh,
support
yes.
spiritually. We have to make good decisions. And one of the things that I have to say, because yes, relationships don't always work out. You may not always work out with the person that you have children with, but you both need to come to and let's agree to disagree. Okay,
That's
we
right.
out romantically, but let's be good parents.
That's right. And this is especially true when our children are younger because they're more vulnerable. You understand? And especially if they live with a parent that's, exuding that type of behavior. You hit it on the head when you said something about the emotions, because see what they'll do is they'll emotionally blackmail those children.
Mhm.
And you have to think about it. Little children, they have a lack of life experience. They don't know anything about adult defenses against manipulation. And not only that, they may be dependent on that parent for whatever reason, and they may feel a resentment for not doing whatever the parent puts them up to. So yeah, it's one of those things where I've heard of cases, okay, and I've witnessed certain things where people who typically do these things, they come from a broken home themselves. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean they all do, but I know from experiences that I've went through and what I've gone through personally and what I've seen, a lot of times these people come from broken homes and they don't even realize that they're repeating a cycle. You're doing the exact same thing that you survived. And the key word here is survived. You weren't raised. You basically just grew up and you survived.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's quite disgusting to me when we have to leverage the kids. Another thing too is we have to shut down inconsistencies. Sometimes another part of that leverage is, children sometimes want to reach out and that parent doesn't answer or they don't respond. But then, come, at a later date, you want to call and talk to the child when you want to. We have to shut that down, women. Anybody going through that, is all about the child's well being and their mental state. We want to keep it as healthy as possible because 9 times out of 10, they're already experiencing certain traumas when things didn't work out with their parents. So we have to tread lightly. Yeah.
And that's one of the things, I want to go back a little bit when you were talking about, the generational curses. We have to break those generational curses, the lack of communication, disrespecting the parent in front of the child. All of those things scar our children.
Yes, sure do.
It's
Oh, yes, they do.
not good to do that.
It's
If
not. No.
you in the relationship, you need to go and from separate from the children and say, let's talk about this. But don't have arguments in front of your children or talk about private and personal things in front of your children.
Right.
Certain things you just don't do, because you in those formative years when they're under the age of 18, they're learning how it is a good relationship. How do you
That's right.
how does
Right. We're setting the example.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
formulating.
and they pick up more from watching us. Children have this thing where they're paying more attention via looks. They're not necessarily listening to us all the time, but they are watching. And you're right, those formative years, you can't get that time back. And just from experience, kids will recant situations. Do you hear me? You are so right. They literally feel some type of a way when they've been around and they've watched a parent, behave irrationally or abusively towards the other parent. You will hear that they will just speak of it at random times. Sometimes you'll think children aren't paying attention, or they're not aware, and you will find out later on that yes, they were paying attention. Yes, they were very aware. So yeah, we have to do what's right for the kids. We have to, we have to clean it up. We do.
Yeah, you do. And I started off by saying up to the age of 18, but when you have a child, having a child is forever. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
how old
you're
they are.
right.
And it's one of those things that even as, you get older, don't, like play mind games. As adults, we have to learn to speak up and to say what we want. You don't have to play games. If you want your child to spend time with you, just say, I want to spend time with you. Don't play the
That's
mind
right.
and the drama. We have to stop doing that as adults, and especially even more so as parents. We have to show good examples to our children of how to communicate regardless if you stay together in the relationship with the said parent. You still should show them, this is how we talk, this is how adults talk, this is how, well, we should say mature adults talk, that care about you. You could say all day long how much you love your children, but what are you willing to do and sacrifice in order for them to be healthy and for them to formulate good, like good communication and good self-esteem, because how you treat your children is how they're going to feel about themselves.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm gonna tell you, there are a lot of people in nursing homes today who children have the time. And that speaks volumes. It really does. I mean, unless there's some type of intervention and that child, turns around, we kind of mold our children and how to turn around and treat us later on in life, and, like I mentioned, we can't get away from us. I think about myself as a mom and some of the ways in which I raise my children. Okay, you can easily depict what's healthy and what's unhealthy. In my household, baby, there were hugs, kisses, I love yous. On the same token, there was discipline. There was disciplinary action. But overall, there was always love. And you can see that with my children. It's called a learned behavior. My environment was love. That's what it was. So that's how I am with my children. And it was a harsh realization that everybody doesn't come from that. And when a child isn't raised in a loving environment, even getting something as simple as hugs, kisses, that can turn a person into a monster alone, because they're not going to even develop properly in certain areas. They're going to build up barriers or guards to where they won't let you in. They'll end up, in most cases, they end up becoming abusers because
Yep.
they come through life surviving. They're always in survival mode. So yeah, we always got to be mindful of what we're allowing to transpire. And yes, stop trying to pawn off our children. Some parents are sitting at home paying their kids no attention. You didn't want to go outside and play. You didn't want to play, or you had to hesitate. Could you imagine a child asking you, hey, dad, could you play such and such with me? And it's, or not right now, son, but you're doing nothing. Do you know how much you're disappointing that child? Then on the flip side, let's see, you say you leave the home. Uh-oh, slow down, buddy. Slow down. Sorry about that. My baby's trying to down this apple juice. Um, but yeah, these same parents, when they get outside the home, here comes the leverage. I want to see my son. I want to see my daughter. You're calling. You want to spend time. You want to come over. Let's fix things. Let's work it out. Wait a minute. But when you were there, you weren't trying to work it out. You weren't trying to put in time. You're using your kids as a leverage. We have to make sure we're aware of these tactics, because that's how so many men and women get sucked right back in,
Yeah,
because that leverage.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Shay, adding to that, using your children as leverage. And another thing that I must say, parents, can we please stop using electronics and thinking that the electronics is a babysitter?
Oh, yes.
Electronics is not a babysitter.
It
You,
sure isn't.
a tablet or your phone is not parenting.
That's
You
right. That is right.
know,
And nowadays,
for any of y'all, I know that you need a break. It's nothing wrong with giving your child a
right.
break and making them watch TV, but you can't just put them in front of a tablet or a phone all day long and ignore them, never have conversation. And come on, parents,
Yep.
also too, as mothers and fathers, what are we teaching our children? Not just what the world or the people or the school is teaching them, but who are we teaching them to be? What conversations are you putting into their head? Are you teaching them how to be good future women and men? Are you teaching them to be responsible, to
Yes,
communicate, to speak
indeed.
up for yourself? What are we doing, parents? What are we doing?
That's right. We're going to set them up for success, or we're going to set them up for failure. Okay. And I'm going to tell you right now, when we subtract the Lord from the equation, a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's scriptural as well. We're told that all our children shall be taught by the Lord. A lot of times, I mean, when the Bible says train our kid up the way to go, we should also keep in mind that he means teach your children about me. And again, this does all tie back into how we're raised as well. I get it. I know some people don't go that route, but I just do. It does help. The Bible gives so much insight on how to train up our kids, how to handle certain situations, guidance for children, how they should treat their parent, and for us as parents, how we're supposed to treat our kids. See, that's the part a lot of people don't know about. The word tells you how you're supposed to treat your kids, honey. You're not to aggravate them, get on their nerves, and be a pestilence to them. We aren't to do that to our children, and so I like to tell people sometimes, we like to go to all of these different things. We will Google things, how to be a good parent. You hop on, Google, you go to YouTube, you go to Quora or whatnot. I just like to reference the word as well, because you're going to get good results. A lot of times, when God is not present, we get the situations that we're speaking on. Now, don't get me wrong. You can raise your child in the Lord and they go their own way, but we need to make sure we're doing our part there, because if they don't rock with God, they're going to I'm going to tell you something about my kids, Marlene. If they decide that they don't want to live for God, that's fine. But as long as they're under my roof, guess who they're going to live for? See, we don't have that parenting today. Think back in our time when we came up, Marlene. That's why we're so different, you
You,
know?
Shay, I hate to cut you off, but I have to say this while I have the point in my head that sometimes we let society raise our children.
Yes.
We let society tell us what we should do and what we should be. And then afterwards, when they become out of control, we always go back full circle to what you should have done in the beginning.
In
So
the beginning.
discipline,
Yeah.
communication, and the word of God. It
Yeah.
always goes back to that. You can't leave it out. I know a lot
You
of people,
can't.
but if you stop communicating, if you stop teaching them about God, and if you stop not listening, you have to put a balance. And I don't mean like an overbearing that is all, we don't want to be overbearing, like, oh, discipline to where they have no life, or, it's just in the house, strict, like, you know, very unreasonable. We don't want to be that as parents as well. Everything is a balance. When they do good, celebrate them, tell them how
That's
proud
right.
them, but also at the same time, it can't be just fun and games all the time. As a parent, you have to have balance.
You're absolutely right about that. We definitely need to have balance, because, parenting can be rough. Okay. It can be rough. And a lot of times it is. And every parent feels like there's the right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things. But, most parents will basically tell you the same thing: I'm doing the best I can. But at the same time, they're afraid of getting it wrong. You see how that kind of collides? I'm doing the best I can, but I'm still afraid of getting it wrong. There's a possibility you may not be doing the best you can for the fact that you're scared of getting it wrong. And again, that's where the word comes in, in my opinion, because you find thoughtful encouragement, in different biblical narratives that give good examples of parenting and bad examples. And, we know that, like you say, we know everybody doesn't roll that way. But if we would be honest with ourselves, even before I got aligned myself, I had to do it Shay's way. But guess what happened every time, Marlene? I had to circle back to God.
All
Now,
right.
why didn't I just go to God the first? Now,
You're
why
right.
didn't I just go to God the first time and get it together? That could have been it. No, like I say, I had to do it Shay's way. So I do get it. However, I don't want people to sleep on time. All the while you're waiting to get yourself together, the children, what are they going through? Your relationships, friendships, or whatnot. What are they going through? Because there are some clear instructions that, apply directly to us being a parent to our kids. When we're stressed, there's guidance on how to get over that. I understand even how people lash out. Before discernment, I did not understand. I had no understanding. But once I gained discernment, I understand what would make a parent lash out, what would make you possibly do something harmful to your child. I'm not saying that I agree and it's okay by any means. What
Right.
I'm saying is, I understand that when you lose that control, if you don't have a place of solace to go to, in my case, that's God, to bring you back to earth, guess what? You will hurt your child, be
Yeah.
it physically, mentally, spiritually, but we will hurt them. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, you hurt
Financial,
those kids,
financial
you
hurt
should
too.
enough have a, huh? And you
Don't
hurt
be
those kids, you
right.
have a price to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. Yeah. So yeah, I know God is all it always circles back no matter what conversation we're having. But yeah, this whole, doing the leverage with the children, it's very sad. It's very unfortunate. And again, when we take a closer observation into the parent that's doing it, a lot of times you're going to see, because a lot of times they lack maturity. They lack maturity in a lot of cases, sometimes even empathy.
And
So,
Shay, what I have to say in addition to that, yes, I agree with that. But a lot of times we have to stop throwing the other parent under the bus. You
yeah,
know, we have to stop
that's
doing that.
true.
Even when we don't agree with something, that's still your child's mother or still your child's
That's
father.
right.
Still
Mm-hmm.
united in things to teach your children that that's still your father, that's still your mother. We're not going to disrespect each other. And even if we're together or we're not together, we are going to raise you in love and we're going to
That's
respect
right.
one another. That's something you have to teach children, because if they don't hear to respect a man or to respect a woman, they're going to grow up thinking you don't respect a woman or you don't respect a man, or a man abandons you or a man talks to you this way. We are teaching our children these things
We
by
sure are.
our actions, whether
That's
we want
right.
it or not. Mhm.
That's right. We definitely are teaching them by our actions. You're absolutely correct. We have to stop doing those things, again, in a lot of cases that's why you have to set a firm boundary when it comes down to that. And you have to be willing to stand firm on that boundary and not allow yourself to back down or allow anyone to pull you from that place. Because yeah, kids shouldn't hear certain things. They shouldn't, but the truth of the matter is sometimes they do. And when they do hear things, as parents, we have to be adult enough to come together and sit with our child and explain it. You're right. That makes all the difference. That does break those curses. We have to be at co-parenting. A lot of people look at it as the end of the world. Just think, when we marry and we have kids, that's all we think about. Our spouse, our children, that's it. That's what we had in mind. We don't see it going any other way. But I'm gonna tell you right now, the stamp of mature adults, first and foremost, differences are going to be set aside, and we're going to care for the children. That's just one of us can't listen. It only works when both of us are mature, not one. It will never work. You have to literally sometimes cut people completely off if they can't come up to par. You can't do it by yourself, and that's almost like slowly sticking a dagger in the child, because it's still going to be lopsided. We have to be able to come to that agreement where, like you stated, we're going to do what we have to do. Me as a woman, I would say this all the time. God forbid me going into a relationship, if I ever went into a relationship with somebody who had kids, one of my stipulations is I would not, again, this is my stipulation, you don't have to do it, but I would need to meet her and your children. See, we jump into these situations blindly. We let people love bomb us and just all they do is down talk their ex, that make them just as criminals, so you stay away from them. See, one of my things is if we can all talk like adults, that means there's nothing to hide and there will be success. I think that's a message for any women and men listening in. I really think that was a gem there. When people have prior families, be it an ex-spouse, children from a prior relationship, it is not if you plan on, put it like this, once you get it in your mind that you plan on going there with that person, having an intimate relationship, we're going to take it to the next level. You need to meet those children. You need to meet that woman. You need to know what you're getting yourself into, because it's going to be too late after the fact, if you get what I'm saying. And that's a sign of maturity. I love seeing situations, not that people have broken up or divorced or split or what, not that, but when people can be mature. Like when I was at an event at the school for my children, and it was one of my daughter's friends, her mom, it was her husband, her ex-husband, and the ex-husband's wife, their support in that little girl. Do you know what that does for that little girl? When we don't have to hide, when it's not lopsided, when it's not, well, you're going to be here, but they're not going to be here because they don't like each other. Y'all, we have to get it together so that we don't find ourselves in a position where we're doing what, Marlene? Trying to leverage our child. No, do it the right way.
We're not doing that. And that also makes a child feel that life happens. You're showing them the reality that sometimes relationships work out, sometimes,
right,
but you can move on and still be kind, still be loving, and still, have that like glue of a foundation that is stable and healthy, because most of the times we see lots of toxicity in this world, in this system of things. We see lots of anger and yelling and disruption, the backbiting, talking about your dad is this and your dad did this to me. Like, let's squash all that and stop doing that as parents. Throwing whatever happened in your relationship, they weren't good to me and they did this and they cheated on me. Let's stop having those adult conversations with children. Let them come to that when they get to be grown, then have that conversation with them. But right now, show your child the good side of that parent. Let that
try your best. Yes. It worked for me. Like I said, it's a testimony for myself. I'm telling you, God can turn relationships between children and bad parents. And I hate to say bad parents. A lot of times people are just misguided. They're misdirected. They're fighting things internally themselves. But at the end of the day, it still equivalates to being bad parents and it affects you. But sometimes, not sometimes, it's a testimony. God will literally work on your behalf. A child who at one point in time, because children will come to despise a parent. I've witnessed that. I've been through it, where a child doesn't want anything to do with a parent, mom or dad. But I'm telling you, we have to teach our children to form these relationships with God and let them know that God will help them as well. Because what end up happening is God will turn situations around, and he will pretty much guard those children's little hearts, and he'll steer the direction to a more positive place where now the relationship is getting better between that parent and that child. That's why we want to always do our part, because at the end of the day, God is the one who comes in and does the completion of things. He's going to come in and seal the deal. But yeah, we don't want to throw shade, throw salt, and just, do these things. Even if we've been guilty of it, let's stop. We're imperfect, and sometimes it takes us a conversation. Sometimes it takes the right conversation for you to even check yourself. Like, you know what? I do that. Let me stop. Or I've done that. Thank God I don't do that anymore. But yeah, we want to set the proper example, because we want to set our kids up for success, not failure.
Yeah, and that's perfect what you just said, Shay. And I do think that it's very important at some point in the relationship, whether you're together or not, to say that, you know, let's let's not raise our voice in front of the children. Let's
Yeah.
let's be supportive. Let's be on a united front. If I'm gonna do something, I'll let you know. If you're gonna do something, I'll let you know. Let's not say, well, you do this with me and you don't have to do that with your dad. United, be united, whether you are in the same household or you're not. If your mother says that she doesn't want you to do this, then I say the same thing. You have to back one another. That's a united front, and that's what children need, whether you live in the same home or they have a visitation.
You just dropped 1,000 gems, Marlene. When I tell you, I was just grinning from ear to ear when you were saying that, because that is something that happens too often. We have to uphold rules. If bedtime is 8 o'clock at dad's, baby, you're going to bed at 8 o'clock at home. We need to be united. You are absolutely right. And let kids know that, hey, sometimes things don't go as planned, but this is not the end of the world. You don't have to let it change you. You don't have to let it steer you in the wrong direction. Yeah, oh my gosh, you just spoke some things there, Marlene. And, in teaching our kids respect, I think a lot of times we underestimate our children and their capabilities. Children can be respectful. That's just probably not their first inclination. So we have to teach them. And once we teach them and we expect that of them, then it becomes a part of their character. So even when they do feel some type of a way towards this parent or that parent, they will restrain themselves. I remember my mom telling me that there's things that we told her in middle school that we were bringing up from elementary school. Can you believe that, Marlene? Her point for telling me that was, when a child is ready to discuss certain things or talk about certain things, oh, they're going to come to you. So don't ever think, I remember her telling me, I had no idea you would be thinking about something that happened in the first or the second grade. But the truth of the matter is, yes, that those kind of things, children hold on to that. So yeah, we want to have a strong front for our children, whether in the home or not. Let's not break promises. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no, because the parent who suffers the most is the parent that's in the home. Because every time the outside parent breaks a promise, we have to come back and try to leverage out that situation, or we try to overcompensate. So I get it. Sometimes, sometimes we make the wrong moves, but from a loving place. You will overcompensate. You'll get to a place where little Johnny needs to be disciplined, but you feel so bad because daddy has stood him up all week. So instead of disciplining him, you overcompensate in that instance. You don't. You just let it slide. See, we shouldn't do those things. But I get it. You can get overwhelmed. You get frustrated. Parenting is hard, and it's not meant for. It wasn't a job for one person. That's not how it was intended. Yeah. But we got to do better by our babies, because God isn't gonna look, He doesn't look too keenly on us when we don't. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it is that one of the things that I loved is I knew somebody, and in that relationship, it was the father taking care of the child because the mother just was going through so much mentally, and he never
Yeah.
downplayed the mother. He never threw her under the bus. He just would tell his son, Mom needs a little bit of time right now, but she still loves you. She'll be back, but she's taking care of herself right now. And I thought that that was one of the most loving things, that when one parent is going through something, not to throw them under the bus, maybe they're lacking the maturity, or they're going through something financially, or whatever issue they're having, the other parent should never say, oh, look at them and look what they're doing. You don't do that. You don't do that, because you cause your child to lose respect for them. They they'll think all kinds of things, and let's not implant things in their head about them. Oh, your father or your mother doesn't do this, or they're nobody, or we let's not do that. Let's squash all of that, and only say things that are positive about the other parent, even if we feel some type of way. My mom always said, let the child come to their conclusion on their own. I'm not going to
And
put it
they will.
think that mom or dad is this way, then you're going to be the one to say that, but you're not going to hear it from me. Um, so that was one of the most beautiful things that I wanted to share too, that, if the other person needs some time, some room to grow, give them that space and don't put them down. Just say that, they're taking a break right now. We have to help them. We have to love them right now because they need some support, but they'll be back in time. Let's just be patient. Okay.
Yeah, that's very smart, and that's really a good way of looking at it, because I mean, it's the honest to God truth, and it does happen. And it's a way to, like I was stating, a lot of times parents will stop showing up because of certain things, and that's one way to just nip it in the bud. That way they're not looking forward, to seeing a parent or hearing from a parent when you let them know what's going on. I've experienced that before, where you just have to tell kids sometimes, hey, they're not well. Maybe they need to, get themselves together, and, let's pray for them instead. Love, everything you just said, Marlene, came from a place of love. Everything you just said was a way to resolve the issue in love. But how do you know to resolve the issue that way if you're not taught to? See,
Right.
our hearts aren't inclined towards goodness. We're born into a world of sin where we have to be taught good. You see what I'm saying? So, like, this is circling right on back to where God, we just circled right on back to God just that fast. So, let me walk out of here. My son's starting to turn up on me. But, so yeah, we want to make sure that, even before things go so far, that we nip certain things in the bud. Try our best to anyway. But like you say, some things we can't change, we cannot stop. But we want to teach our kids to still be respectful to the parent and to the parents that are using the leverage techniques. We want them to stop, because what you just mentioned, Marlene, you really outlined the tactics, because that adversary wants us arguing. He wants us putting each other down. He wants us pointing the finger. He wants us using our children. And how do we counteract that? With love.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love so much about what one of my friends did is he gave his child's mother room to grow personally, because not everybody is in a stage, because you have a child, that you're developed emotionally or you're developed mentally or you're financially together. But the other one, that's when you display kindness and patience and respect them still, even until they learn how to respect themselves. Not all of us grow into respecting ourselves and loving ourselves and knowing how to be a parent, but that's when the other person, who may be more mature, can extend some kindness and some patience and say, it's okay, I'll give you some room to grow, because this is your child and I want you to be a good parent, and I don't want you to scar our child. That's how you do it in love.
Right. And of course, we're talking about a relationship that otherwise is healthy, because some relationships are beyond that. Some relationships are toxic, and, sometimes the things we're talking about may not, it may not necessarily, it may or not go in those situations. But yeah, if we're other than, the minor things, a healthy relationship. Yeah. Because on the flip side, though, it's nothing worse. That's why we have to take things seriously. It's nothing worse than to go into a marriage, establish your family, you're making plans for your future, and then only for someone to end up being immature. Somebody end up not wanting to be a parent. Somebody wanting to do what they want to do. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought we were beyond that. It takes it back to us. We need to take this marriage thing seriously, who we lay with seriously.
Yeah.
Get to know people's families. You have no idea what we sign up for. These are major commitments. These are supposed to be commitments for life. Your child is your child for life. You can't get around that. your spouse is supposed to be, but of course things, happen. So yeah, we just have to be very, very careful of the situations and marriages that we go into. Make sure we're doing it the right way, and that's by, instead of having to come back to God, let's confront him first, because you're right, some people just aren't ready at all. But years into a marriage, a family, a career, that's a little, how does that affect the other parent? That's
Right.
going to be very, very heartbreaking. That if that parent is weak, if that other parent is weak minded or just in a weakened state, that can be all bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be all bad, and that's one of the reasons why it's important for at least one person in the relationship to be mature enough to say, either I'm going to have to just be the strong for both of us, because some just have to be mother and father in a relationship because the other one has checked out or is just not not not, what do you call it, like not fully cooked. They don't have it all together, so we have to be.
I was just about to say they don't have all their ducks in a row. Come
Mhm.
on.
They don't have all their ducks in a row, so sometimes it's just that way. And I know that it's hard as a parent to do everything when the other one, when you feel like you're taking all of the brunt of the work, you're doing more than you should. But that's not the time to berate the other parent. You just do what you're supposed to do. I think that's the thing that is the most important, in this message, is whichever parent, whether it's mother or father, one may be stronger than the other, but you do your part. You just be a good mother, or you
That's
just be a
right.
good father, and
That's
that's
right.
to it. You can't make another person do right. Unfortunately, there are some that never should have had children.
Oh, honey, and that's a whole nother topic. I'm sure we'll address at some point in time. But you're right. Some people shouldn't have children altogether, let alone, even certain, relationships, intimate relationships. This is a real thing. Some people should really stay away from those things, and some people even get early diagnosis telling them those types of things. But then we carry on in life as if it's a game. We can just, we're gonna. No, some people just really shouldn't do it from Jump Street. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's some people that they definitely don't need to have children. Like, we've heard the people who, they have a certain medical issues, or they know that they're not in a good financial situation. We have to protect ourselves. And you have to see, like, when you see somebody is not wrapped tight mentally, if you know somebody has issues and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then why go and have children? And I just did a podcast about that, that everybody is not meant to have children with.
Yep. That's why you need discernment too. I'm gonna tell you, if
Yeah.
you've been bamboozled, you sure enough feel some type of a way, because people can fake, people can pretend. That's why everything circles back, because a lack of discernment is how you lay with somebody who's about nothing. You don't even have the lack of discernment. So if they love bomb you, you don't have the discernment to let you know that that's nothing but buffoonery. You would literally pick up on the game. Let me tell you, Marlene, since discernment that fell upon me, honey. Okay, and I have a whole spouse.
Yeah.
These men go in. Do you hear me? When I tell you, men can be hilarious. I mean, they could be hilarious, and they will want you to think that they are so serious. Oh yeah, I mean this, but I have discernment. My discernment is like, man, you trying to holler, you want a booty call. Think about it. Your discernment can save us in situations. And then too, I'm very careful about how I carry myself. So to be honest with you, you're probably just really, really bold to approach me, because I don't even carry myself in that manner anyway, to be approachable like that, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's one of those things where we have to we just have to tread lightly there, because it does matter. It matters a lot, and it does make a big difference.
Yeah, and one thing that I have to say is that, you know, the issue that I always have is people will go into a relationship knowing how somebody is, and
Yeah,
then
that's different. Yeah.
thinking that a child is going to save that relationship. Like,
Hmm.
relationship is already tumultuous.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
and they think, oh, I'll have a baby. A baby will save this relationship. One of the worst things that you can ever do. If you
Yeah,
don't,
that's the worst thing you can do. You just ruined that child's life. Or should I say, you just took a gamble with their life? Because to be honest with you, you don't know how it's going to turn out.
yeah,
So, yeah, we have to be really careful. We just have to be careful all around. But yeah, that lack of discernment will let a love bomber love bomb you right into a baby. Yeah, that's how a lot of women, just from people I talk to who find out after the fact, it always turns out that there was some type of a mask somebody was wearing. And it turns out by the time you realize that you're so deep into it, you may be multiple kids in by then. Maybe you may even be married with a whole family because
yeah,
you didn't have discernment at the time. But once discernment creeps in, trust me, it's gonna shake some feathers up though. But I know we digress from the subject a bit, but it does all tie back into, the way we're programmed, starting from our mind, is how we're going to handle our kids. And the more healthier our mind is, we're going to handle things the adult way so that we're not leveraging our kids. We're not involving our kids. They shouldn't even know what's going on, to be honest with you. And a mature parent is not going to hold back from the child because they feel some type of a way towards the other parent. That's very immature as well. So we have to do better as the adults.
we do. And that's why I always say, as adults, I don't mean kids, but to be honest, a lot of times a little boy and a little girl get together. Let's be real. Just because you may be a full grown, a grown person according to society, it doesn't make you emotionally mature. It doesn't make you
That's
financially
right.
mature, spiritually mature. Those are things that we have to learn.
That's right. And no pill can give you that. Like I said, I studied quite a bit. A pill cannot give you that. You have to, there's other things we have to do. I mean, I'm not against, therapists and getting help. That's very much recommended. My point is, though, it's going to take deeper work. We have to dig a bit deeper when it comes down to, tying into emotions and emotions not being there or whatnot. That's something that, it's going to take a lot more work, but we have to be willing to do it.
You do. Yeah. You have to be willing to put in some work into your relationship, and like I've been saying from the beginning, your children are important enough, or they should be. To some, their priorities are off. They're not putting their children as a priority. They still are
Oh, yes, ma'am.
person. And when you have a child, you are no longer single. You are in this relationship with this child forever, and whoever you lay down with and have seed with, you are connected to them forever, whether you want to or not. So
Right,
it's
that's right.
very careful about who we select to have children with.
That's right. Be very careful, y'all. Get you some discernment so that we can see past, the face. So that, yeah, like Marlene says, it's very, very vital. It is so important who we go into these commitments with. And like she stated, you're connected forever, whether you're together or not.
Right.
There's still going to always be a connection. And I'm going to tell you, when somebody lacks maturity, it is one roller coaster of a ride, because a lot of times they're irrational. They do things, okay, and they're the ones who like to try to leverage the children. So, we have to keep it real with self, though. A lot of times we get into these situations either because we just wanted to, we ignore the red flags, we just completely lack discernment, but whatever the situation is, we just need to turn it around for the betterment of our kids. As Marlene has been saying all this time, we
Yeah.
should do what we have to do for our babies. It's very important. Step out of our emotions. Emotions will have you. What was that term I saw one day I was reading? Um, Emotions can come in and override your wisdom or something like that. You have to get your emotions under control and
Mhm.
stick tight to what you know, because your emotions can literally come in and fast track you off in another direction.
And that's one of the reasons why I always say, there's a time and a place to for emotions, and some decisions are not an emotional one. There are some decisions that you need to be thinking about, what How is this going to
That's
affect
right.
the future of my child? How is this going
That's
to affect
right.
in the future? Am I going to be scarring them, traumatizing them for the rest of their life, or am I going to be helping them? And becoming a parent, it changes you in a way like nothing else. You learn that certain things that you did that maybe your parents did to you, and we always say, "Oh, I would never do this like my parents," and we wind up doing the same thing just like
Same thing.
our parents.
Yeah.
And until we
Yeah.
get a space to where we do something about it, if you learn something, we always as adults can change our behaviors if we want to. That's the difference. It's not going to be easy, but if you want to make changes, if you want to make your child happier, you'll learn how to communicate. You'll learn to be more patient and to be loving and to be supportive, even if that wasn't the way you grew up.
That's right. It's all about choice. And that's something that helped me as I continue to heal from things that require healing in my life. Once I realized everything is a choice. Just like I choose to be a good person, I choose to align myself, I choose to do right by God. There are people who choose to not. Okay. There are people who choose to do what they want to do. There are people who choose to live their life as they please. And if God says they can do it, who the heck am I to say otherwise? God does not sit and hold us shackled to him. He allows us the room and space to do what we want to do. That's why punishment is always so just and so fair. Because he let us do exactly what we want to do. That way, when wrath comes around, who do you question?
Yeah,
Yourself. We can't beat up anybody but ourselves. Yeah, this conversation was much needed because y'all, our children are everything. And
yeah,
it's kind of I would be remiss to say, how we need to do as parents before firstly saying you got to fix yourself first. Just like
yes,
the scripture says, how can you pull the straw out of someone else's eye when you have it in your very own eye? You can't even see how to do it. Meaning you have to get yourself together first. Okay. You get it figured out. You learn the way. Then you go tell your brother. Okay. That's
right.
when you go and do that. And
Yep.
a lot of times that's what people don't do. And you have the blind leading the blind.
Yes,
So
exactly. Because that scripture also says that you have a straw in your eye, but also that no, the person you're talking about has a straw in their eye, but you are not seeing. You have a rafter. You got this big piece of plywood. Like you talking about, they got a straw with
I
the raft.
know.
What about your flaws? What about
I
what you?
know that's right.
So
That's why people. That's where people come from with that. How dare you judge me? Look at you. I think that's kind of that, but it does go hand in hand. You have to do. You have to fix on self. You do before you
mhm,
can tell somebody else anything. Because you're right. That's exactly how they'll do. Who are you? What? How are you going
mhm,
to tell me that I shouldn't be cheating on my wife? You cheat on your wife all the time.
mhm,
How can you tell me that I shouldn't be a liar? You just lied 5 minutes ago. So
yep,
yeah, we have to. That's why the Bible says to keep a close watch on ourselves. Live what you're talking on. I don't want to be around here with the empty speeches. Okay, being a hearer of the word and no, not a doer of it. So, but yeah, this conversation was necessary, Marlene. I appreciate you,
I,
having me up here to talk about it. But as I know you're probably going to get ready to close out, but I just want to say once again, y'all, the leverage thing is selfish, it's insensitive, it's
mhm,
immature. It shows the flaws of the parent. It shows the fruitage of the parent, okay? And to
yeah,
the more positive, healthy minded parent, honey, that's not a reflection of you. That's not a reflection of you. We pick the ways that we go. But all in all, let's still instill in our children to respect these parents, but we got to set boundaries. The boundaries have to be put in place. And y'all, we have to not bend on them when it comes down to this leverage thing. Before you allow someone to use children as a leverage, to be honest with you, you may need to cut them out altogether because
yeah,
no one is going to become healthier in the situation. So it's best that we make, executive decisions and do what's best for our kids. That's what I have to say.
Well said, Shay. Well said. And my final thing that I want to say is that our children are very important. They're very special, and they're going to grow up one day and they're going to get in their relationships. So we have to make good decisions. We have to protect them, but also you have to come together as parents, if it's possible. If not, do your best, but don't use your children as leverage. Respect yourself, respect the other parent, take care of your child, and do your best. And that's all we can do. So thank you so much, Shay, for joining me today.
My pleasure, darling. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. See you guys on the next one.
All right. Bye.
Bye.